Hey guys, tonight we journey far north to the snow-draped forests of Hokkaido, Japan. Where wind moves slowly through cedar trees and the breath of winter settles thick on the ground. You're wrapped in layers of furs and woven bark fibers, crunching softly through ice-packed trails that lead to a village hidden beneath the hush of falling snow. Lanterns flicker behind reed screens, distant flutes warble like half-forgotten lullabies, and the air carries the faint smell of smoked fish and pine sap. The Ainu people keepers of stories, whispered more than shouted, have lived here for centuries, if not longer. You're here not for war or conquest or trade, but something stranger and gentler. A bear festival. Or, more precisely, a whispering ceremony for a bear raised like kin and sent off like a god. Of course, you probably won't survive this. You're wearing boots made for sidewalks, and your idea of cold is a poorly air-conditioned coffee shop. Still, you'll try. You'll follow the scent of wood smoke, the low thrum of drums, and the trail of giant paw prints pressed into powdery snow. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from tonight, and what time is it where you are? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Trudge closer to the edge of the village. The wind here isn't loud. It just curls around your hood like it's asking a question. Smoke drifts up from narrow chimneys, and dogs, short-legged and thick-furred, watch you pass with disinterested eyes. The Ainu village isn't large. Maybe a dozen thatched huts laid out around a communal fire pit, where a few elders squat on folded legs, warming their hands and occasionally murmuring to the flames. You hear singing in a minor key, high and nasal, like the mountains themselves are humming, and soon realize it's not just a song. It's a story. A prayer. Possibly both. A woman passes, carrying a bundle of firewood on her back, her breath steaming. She nods once, not unkindly, and you catch a glimpse of the tattoo curling around her mouth, a traditional sign of womanhood and ancestral connection. Though the practice was banned in the late 19th century by the Japanese government, still here, some ink remains. Old ways die slow. Historians still argue whether the Ainu are genetically closer to the Jomon people of ancient Japan, or to Siberian tribes like the Nifk. The truth, like most things involving ancient migration, is a foggy blend. But culturally, the Ainu stand apart. They fish with spears, carve sacred sticks called inau, and believe every animal, plant, and rock has a spirit, a kami, to be respected, fed, and occasionally argued with. You're invited quietly, always quietly, toward one of the huts. Inside, it's warmer than you expect. The floor is covered in layers of rush mats, fur, and what may or may not be bear pelts. Don't stare too long. A pot simmers near the central hearth. Someone hands you a cup of hot tonoto, a fermented millet drink that tastes like what rice wine might taste like if it got nervous halfway through brewing, and then you hear it, a snort, a rustle, the unmistakable heavy exhale of something large and furred just beyond the interior wall. You lean ever so slightly and spot it, a bear cub. Or rather, not quite a cub anymore, maybe 2 years old, thick with winter fat, lounging in a special pen built directly onto the side of the house. It has blankets. It has toys. It has a name. You've arrived just in time for the early days of the Iomonte, the bear sending ceremony. The bear, you see, has been raised among the villagers since it was found orphaned in the mountains, nursed, fed, petted, and possibly gossiped to. The Ainu don't see this as keeping a pet. The bear is a visiting god in earthly form. The cub is treated as both sacred and temporal, a being from the divine realm, here to be honored before returning home. And no, the bear doesn't live here forever. You'll come to understand that part later. For now, you sit near the hearth, sipping slowly. An elder offers you dried fish and a wry smile. He points toward the bear and mutters something in Ainu, something low and rhythmic. You don't catch the words, but you understand the tone. Reverence with just a sprinkle of mischief. You learn that before the snow melted last year, the villagers decided this bear would be the next to go home. That decision isn't taken lightly. Only certain cubs are chosen. And it takes nearly 2 years to prepare, not just physically, but spiritually. There are dreams to interpret, omens to observe, dances to choreograph. And yes, you've arrived. Right as the village begins to turn inward, to speak more in murmurs than in laughter, as they prepare to say goodbye to a creature they raised as family. You step back outside as the light begins to fade. The village glows gold against the snow. The bear yawns, massive teeth flashing briefly, then rolls onto its side like a dog that doesn't know its worship. Tomorrow, they'll start building the bear hut. Not just any enclosure, a ceremonial home, complete with bedding, ropes, of sacred reeds and offerings hung like festive decorations. But for tonight, you sit quietly under the stars, your cup empty, your breath slow, and the fire behind your eyes already dimming. The next morning arrives not with an alarm clock or rooster, but with the soft crunch of snow being shoveled outside your sleeping mat. Someone's already stoking the fire, the hut warm and humming with the low sounds of breath and kindling. You stretch, bones clicking, the fur is slipping off your shoulders, and you remember. Today, they build the bear's house. You shuffle outside, steam lifting from the hearth smoke as though the sky itself is sighing. The villagers move with unhurried purpose. No one barks orders. No one runs. It's like watching a snow globe in slow motion, except the snow is real and slightly stings your nose. Near the edge of the clearing, a flat patch of ground is being cleared. Men and women together work silently, laying a frame from cedar logs, already peeled of bark and blessed with a few murmured words you can't quite translate. This structure won't be big. It's not meant for the bear to live in forever, just a kind of ceremonial vestibule. A place where the divine guest can be formally thanked and sent on its way. As you step closer, a boy no older than 8 walks past with a bundle of rope made from twisted bark fibers. He pauses just long enough to glance at your boots with the universal look of a child thinking, "That's not going to survive this." He's right, of course. The bear is still lounging. It pokes its nose out of the pen, sniffs the air like a gourmet considering a cheese plate, and lets out a huff that briefly startles a nearby dog. The house they're building is called a kamichep, or God's house. Its measurements are precise, just large enough for the bear to sit comfortably, small enough to remain humble. There's symbolism here. You're not just building a shack. You're shaping a bridge between the human and spirit world, like assembling IKEA furniture for a deity and hoping you don't leave out any screws. Historians still argue whether the Ainu viewed the bear purely as a vessel for a kami or as a divine being in its own right. Some accounts suggest the bear only becomes sacred once chosen and honored through ritual. Others insist it always was. Either way, this house is not decorative. It will serve as the bear's sacred dwelling for the final days of the ceremony. Once completed, it will be decorated with carved Ainu wooden prayer sticks shaped like bristly brush heads and hung with bits of cloth, feathers, even offerings of rice and dried fish. You help carry a beam even though no one asks you to. They let you, kindly, with that patient nod people use when letting someone harmless feel helpful. Your gloves slip a bit, but you manage not to drop it. A man nearby sings softly as he works, a melody made of syllables that blend into one another like melted snow. It's not just for entertainment. Songs during construction are part of the ritual itself. The building, the chanting, the smoke rising from nearby huts, all of it layers into one slow symphony. You overhear a woman telling another that the bear slept well last night, didn't snore too much. They say it like a relative recovering from a long journey. By midday, the basic frame of the house stands, a small gabled structure that looks oddly cozy. A young girl brings over a fur-lined mat and tucks it into the corner of the floor. Someone else places 2 bowls, one for water, one for food. And near the entry, an elder gently presses a carved talisman into the ground, its ridged surface catching the light. You're invited to step inside. You duck, crouch, and breathe in cedar and earth. It's warm, not physically, but spiritually warm. You feel it in your ribcage. Like the hut itself is humming with anticipation. Outside, children gather pine branches and begin weaving them into loose bundles that will later be tied to the posts. Each branch is tied with silent concentration. There's laughter, but it's quiet laughter, like the forest is eavesdropping and they don't want to wake it. One of the elders explains, in halting Japanese, that the bear will be brought here soon, but not yet. First, the house must be introduced to the world. Yes, even a house can require a kind of gentle debut. A few muttered prayers, a sprinkle of sake, some ashes from the fire hearth. It's less a blessing, more of a whisper that says, you are here for something important. Don't get cocky. By nightfall, the kamichep is finished. Decorated, blessed, and glowing faintly in the lantern light. It doesn't sparkle or tower or impress with grandeur, but it sits like something perfectly in place, like it has always existed, simply waiting to be revealed. The bear, meanwhile, has shown a mild interest in the goings-on. It yawns again, sniffs a fish tied to a nearby post, and retreats to its pen to nap. You wonder if it dreams of rivers or something more unknowable. Before heading in for sleep, you linger a moment. Snow begins to fall again, soft and dry as powdered. Sugar. The hut, the bear, the stars, all of it exists in a hush that feels staged for you alone. For just a heartbeat, you feel like you belong here, or at least, like the land has accepted your clumsy intrusion with tolerant grace. Inside your own borrowed hut, you peel off the wet outer layers and slip under fur blankets that smell like wood smoke and cedar needles. In the distance, someone plays a slow rhythm on a carved drum. You don't know the song, but your body already knows the tempo. You wake to the sound of chewing. Outside, a rhythmic munching blends with low, muffled chatter and the occasional creak of snow underfoot. You roll over slowly, cocooned in your fur pile, and peek out from under the flap of your sleeping space. There it is again, munch, snort. Munched at. The bear is having breakfast. You shuffle outside, following the scent of roasted fish and something faintly sweet. The bear sits contentedly in its pen, jaws working through a heap of roasted trout and rice cakes shaped like moons. It eats the way royalty does, slowly, luxuriously, with the deep, unshuckable knowledge that no one's taking anything away. Villagers pass bowls back and forth, refilling them with bits of yam, smoked meats, and fermented millet. You're handed a steaming chunk of root vegetable and a crooked smile. One man offers you a dried persimmon. You chew on it for a long while, vaguely unsure whether it's meant to be eaten or worshipped. Here's the thing you didn't expect. The bear isn't afraid. It's not pacing or growling. It's relaxed. Dare you say, pleased? The Ainu raise the bear cub with remarkable tenderness. From the moment it's brought into the village, usually after a hunting party finds it orphaned in early spring, it is never struck, never yelled at, never treated as a beast. It's carried in swaddling cloth like a human baby, fed with a wooden spoon. Sung to. Yes, sung to. You glance at an older woman near the fire, her eyes half closed as she hums a tune. that slips easily into the air. It's gentle, repetitive, melodic in a way that sticks to the inside of your brain. You get the feeling she's been singing this same melody for years, maybe decades, maybe longer. There's debate among scholars, of course, there is about whether this treatment was affection, reverence, or something in between. Some argue that it was practical. A calm bear is easier to care for. Others believe the bear's comfort was symbolic, a gesture of respect to the divine soul living within the animal. Whatever the reason, one thing's clear. This bear is not just a ritual object. It is beloved. You hear stories from the villagers today shared around the fire, in casual murmurs and half-laughs about other bears from other ceremonies. 1. They say used to nap with the village dogs. Another learned to paw at a specific mat to demand food. One particularly clever cub, apparently, figured out how to open the door to the safe storage and spent a foggy afternoon stumbling around the snow until it passed out under someone's laundry line. You're not sure which stories are true and which are gentle exaggeration, but no one seems in a rush to separate the two. The bear you're observing today, its name, roughly translates to Little Thunder in Ainu, is now about 2 winters old. It's reached a size and age where it would be naturally venturing back into the wild had it not been raised among humans. But the Ainu believe its time in the human world is ending for another reason. Its spirit must return home. The ceremony isn't about dominance. It's not about proving humanity's strength over nature. Quite the opposite, it's about gratitude, about returning a gift. The bear is a vessel of the mountain god, sent down to live briefly among mortals. Its departure, then, is not a loss but a sacred sending off. You spend part of the day helping prepare more food, not just for the bear, but for the guests who'll arrive tomorrow from neighboring villages. People come from miles away for the Iomonte. It's not just a rite, it's a communal event, a feast, a spiritual reunion, a quiet revelry. You peel root vegetables with a curved blade that feels older than your country. Across from you, a woman with twin braids and soot-streaked cheeks teaches you how to mash boiled millet using a stone pestle the size of a sleeping cat. She chuckles when you do it wrong, then helps adjust your grip. Her hands are calloused, warm, steady. Meanwhile, the children take turns visiting Little Thunder, offering snacks and clapping in a rhythm that feels like a game. You're told that the bear is given specific foods in the days leading up to the ceremony: fatty fish, sweet nuts, and millet cakes to prepare it for its spiritual journey. It's not about fattening, they clarify. It's about honoring. Mid-afternoon, a group of elders gathers around the bear's hut, placing more carved inao sticks in a neat row by the doorway. Each one has been carefully whittled, its curls tight and tidy like wood-shaving noodles. These are prayers in physical form. Whispered, carved, placed. An elder tells you the inao are made only with right-turning curls. Left-turning spirals are considered impure, disrespectful to the gods. He holds one up for you to see, the pale grain catching the winter light. As the sun dips behind the trees, casting long blue shadows across the snow, you sit on a log and watch the bear bat at a wooden ball tied to a stick. It's the sort of toy a toddler might ignore in favor of the box it came in. But the bear seems content to nudge it back and forth, like it understands its purpose, even if you don't. You're reminded again that this isn't a zoo. This isn't a ritual that's meant to be seen by tourists or documented with flashy cameras. There's no spotlight. Just the gentle hush of a community preparing to say goodbye to something holy and warm. And FURRED. Night falls like a blanket. The bear retreats into its pen, belly round, eyes heavy. You do the same. And before you drift off, you think you hear someone singing again softly from somewhere nearby. A lullaby maybe. Or a prayer. Or maybe the two are the same. You wait before sunrise, drawn out of sleep by something that isn't sound exactly, more like the sensation of a house breathing differently. The village is shifting quietly. You sit up slowly, blanket sliding off your shoulders, and peek. Through the wall flap, the sky is still deep blue, tinged faintly with the kind of light that doesn't quite count as dawn yet. Most of the huts remain dim inside, but a few have flickers of firelight dancing just behind reed walls. A line of footprints already curves across the snow, leading toward the bear's hut. You pull on your outer layers slightly less frozen than yesterday, a small victory, and make your way through the silent powder dot at the ceremonial hut. A small gathering has formed. Elders, 2 younger men, and a middle-aged woman holding something in her arms wrapped in cloth. It's not food or firewood. It's a small carved statue, rounded, delicate, and unmistakably bear-shaped. She places it at the edge of the kamaichap, just inside the doorway, with the kind of care reserved for family portraits and holy relics. Today, you're told, is the naming day. Not naming as ownership, but naming as recognition. As in, we see you. We speak your name now. You were never ours, but we knew you. A bear raised for Iomonte is sometimes named earlier in its life, but it's today, the morning before the full ceremonies begin, that the name is spoken publicly. It's a symbolic milestone. The bear moves from quiet guest to honored visitor, from animal to ambassador of the divine. You're invited to sit near the elders, and though your knees creak and your breath puffs little clouds in the cold air, you settle in gratefully. One of the oldest men, his beard as white as the snow itself, begins speaking in Ainu, his words slow and ceremonial. You don't understand most of them, but the rhythm feels familiar, like bedtime stories, like river songs, like wind curling through pine dot. At a certain phrase, everyone leans forward. He repeats the name, Kamaichep Aka, which roughly means the place where the god bear sits. The bear, perhaps on cue or perhaps just bored, lumbers forward in its pen and lets out a deep, airy grunt. You'd swear it was acknowledgement or protest. Hard to tell with bears. The name is echoed softly by those in attendance, almost like a prayer or a refrain. One elder beats a slow rhythm on a drum carved from birch and covered in sealskin. 2. Others raise inao sticks and wave them gently toward the bear's enclosure, like they're brushing blessings onto the air. Historians still argue whether these naming rituals had any legal or political function within Ainu society or were purely spiritual. Some anthropologists suggest that naming the bear helped integrate it into the communal memory, linking it to future festivals and ancestral lineage. Others argue it was simply emotional, a way to say goodbye in a language deeper than grief. Meanwhile, a child toddles over, hand in hand with her mother, and gently places a shiny pebble at the threshold of the bear hut. No one tells her to stop. No one scoffs. Everyone watches as if she's placed a crown on a king. Later that morning, preparations ramp up. Not with urgency, never with urgency, but with a sort of accumulating hum. More villagers return from the forest carrying armfuls of fresh branches and small carved charms. A group of visiting relatives arrives, wrapped in patterned robes, dusted with snow, and smiling like people coming home. Inside one of the larger huts, cloths are being embroidered with spirals and symbols, some for the ceremonial attire, others to be used as offerings. You watch 2 women work in near silence. The only sounds the flick of thread through cloth and the occasional contented sigh. The bear is fed again, this time with a meal so elaborate it looks like something from a forest-themed bento cookbook. Roasted fish placed just so, a mound of sweetened millet, a small bowl of water infused with pine needles. You're told the food offered to the bear must also be spiritually edible, not just palatable, but respectful. No garlic, for example. Too harsh. No overly spicy items either. The gods, apparently, prefer a gentle flavor profile. Children are taught to bow their heads when approaching the hut now. Not from fear, but from custom. From the idea that you don't just look a god straight in the eye, even if it has fur and keeps licking its paw like it's not aware of the gravitas. You take a walk through the village to stretch your legs, watching. Smoke rise steadily from every hut. There's a feeling in the air like the village is swelling slightly with invisible breath. Everyone seems just a hair quieter than usual, their steps a bit softer. Their gestures more mindful. In one hut, an elder shows you a bear claw necklace worn smooth from years of use. He doesn't speak much, but he lets you hold it. The weight surprises you heavier than it looks, like it contains more than just bone. He mimes placing it against his chest, then taps your heart lightly with one finger. You think you get the message. That night, another small gathering forms at the bear's hut. This time, it's mostly elders and young adults learning the chants. They practice in near darkness, lit only by the glow of pine torches. The chants aren't loud, more like echoes bouncing off the inside of your skull. They have rhythm, but no hard edges. Like lullabies designed for the forest. You sit outside long after most others have gone to sleep. Your breath visible, the stars sharp enough to prick. Inside its pen, Kamichep sleeps with one massive paw curled under its chin, like a child dreaming of a climb it once made. You whisper the name once more to yourself. Not because anyone told you to, but because it feels right. A name, after. All is a kind of key, a soft one, made not of metal, but meaning. By the next morning, something has shifted again. The snow still falls in tiny, fluttering specks, barely visible unless caught in the right slant of light, but the village air feels heavier. Not tense, exactly, just more watchful. As though even the dogs have decided to keep their thoughts to themselves today. You wake slowly, rubbing sleep from your eyes, and hear it. A steady rhythm coming from somewhere nearby. Low thumps, spaced like footsteps from a careful giant. When you poke your head outside, you see them, 3 young men practicing a dance in the open space near the bear's hut. They wear simple tunics for now, thick and quilted, sleeves patterned, with bold spirals. Their feet strike the snow-covered ground with careful force. Heel-toe, pause. Heel-toe, breath. Between steps, they turn in unison, arms extended, hands cupped like they're holding something sacred and invisible. This is rehearsal. You sit on a low stump as a woman sidles up next to you, hands stuffed deep into the sleeves of her robe. She tells you, in soft Japanese, that this dance is not about performance, it's about memory. The steps were passed down from older dancers who learned from theirs, and so on, though no one quite remembers how it all began. The dance remembers. Even if we don't, she says, matter-of-faculty. Soon, more villagers arrive to join them, men, women, even one white-haired elder who moves slower but no less deliberately. The group grows into a spiral, a circle, a slow-moving constellation. The Iomonte dances are not loud or flamboyant. They're subdued like wind brushing over tall grass. They tell stories, sure, but they whisper them. You'd miss the meaning entirely if you watched with your eyes alone. You need your ears, your ribs. The quiet place between your lungs. As the group moves, you notice something. Their eyes stay slightly downcast. Their mouths don't move unless singing. There's an intentional stillness to their faces, like they've left room for the spirit to come and sit behind their expressions, guiding the movement. You ask someone nearby how long they've been rehearsing. He shrugs. Years, he says, but also just since yesterday. Then he grins and walks off to rejoin the dancers. Later, inside the largest ceremonial hut, you see other forms of practice taking shape. Two older women work with bundles of herbs, grinding them slowly between smooth stones. Another group prepares strips of cloth, folding them precisely to be worn around the waist, shoulders, and head. The cloth patterns represent different lineages. Some spiral inward. Others stretch outward like waves. Children sit cross-legged nearby, trying to learn. The chant refrains. They giggle when they get them wrong, then start again. An elder taps out a rhythm for them using a long, carved stick and the side of a cooking pot. There are no harsh corrections. No scolding. Just a gentle loop of learning, forgetting, and learning again. One of the boys pulls you aside with a kind of excited secrecy only children possess. He shows you a small mask made from bark rough, wide-eyed, with a too large mouth. For the spirits, he says, whispering like the mask might hear, but only during the fire part. You don't know what the fire part is yet, but the way he says it, you feel both thrilled and slightly concerned. Historians still argue whether the bear ceremony choreography was ever formalized, or if each village improvised its own set of movements and chants. Some accounts suggest an official pattern existed long ago, taught by shamans and kept in oral memory. Others think it was always more fluid, responsive to the bear, the season, the mood of the village itself. Either way, the movements are precise, meaningful. Even the slow turning of a hand seems to say something you can't quite translate. Outside, the bear seems restless, not alarmed, just aware. Kamai Chepaka paces near the door of its pen, sniffing the air, pawing once at the snow. A child offers it a bit of roasted root through the wooden slats. The bear accepts it with the gentlest crunch, like it knows how small its admirers are. You're told this sensitivity is normal. As the festival nears, the bear can feel it. The rising energy, the shift in posture and voice. It's grown up around these rhythms. The drums, the dances, the low-spoken chants. It knows something is coming, even if it doesn't know what. That evening, everyone gathers around the communal fire pit. The elders sit closest to the flames, their faces lined and gleaming with a soft amber glow. The dancers sit next, then the singers, then everyone else in a layered half-moon. This is the final rehearsal, the full version. No interruptions, drums. Begin not loud but deep. They thump like distant thunder or a heartbeat felt through snow. Voices follow, singing in overlapping lines that build and fall like tides. You can't understand the words, but you don't need to. The feeling is enough. At one point, a woman rises and moves toward the fire. She lifts her arms, fingers pointed skyward, then rotates slowly, her shadow dancing behind her like a second spirit. Others join her, the dance now a living ring around. The fire. Arms wave like branches. Feet slide like river currents. Somewhere in the midst of it all, you realize the village has disappeared. Not literally, but you're not in a modern world anymore. Not in a place with years and streetlights and cell towers. You're in a soft moment carved out of time. A moment when snow falls and fire crackles and gods might, if you're quiet enough, come sit beside you to listen. You exhale. Long, slow. You're not cold anymore. After the dance ends, there is no applause. Just breath and stillness. And the quiet shuffle of people rising, stretching, and heading back to their homes. No one speaks loudly. Not even the dogs bark. Even the bear is still. Morning comes with the scent of something sweet cooking low over fire-smoked chestnuts, maybe, or roasted millet syrup. Your stomach stirs before your eyes do. Outside, the snow has softened just enough to turn silver in the morning light. Like the world has been quietly polished while you slept. Today is the day of the offerings. You pull on your layers, by now a ritual in itself, and make your way toward the village center, where bundles and bowls are already being arranged with a kind of hushed reverence. You pause beside a low table layered with what looks like edible artwork. Strips of dried salmon laid in a fan, pressed cakes of pine nut and barley, tiny bundles of mountain herbs tied with bark string. Some of it looks delicious. Some looks like it might bite back. A young girl carries a wooden tray filled with amber-colored beads, not jewelry, but dried berries strung like prayers. She lays them at the feet of a carved wooden bear statue, bowing deeply before scampering off. These are the gifts. The Sone Kamai, offerings to the gods. Today is not yet the main ceremony that comes tomorrow, but this is the day when every household, every person, contributes a piece of gratitude. Something they grew, cooked, shaped, found. It's not just about impressing the gods. It's about remembering them, feeding them, thanking them. One man presents a beautifully woven reed mat. Another offers a small bowl of fermented deer milk, which you politely admire from a safe distance. Someone places a carved stick with what appears to be a smile? Yes, it's a stick with a face on it. Cheeky grin and all that, you learn that not all offerings are serious. The gods, according to Ainu belief, appreciate joy as much as solemnity. A gift that makes someone laugh? That might please a spirit more than a perfectly symmetrical fish. Nearby, the bear's pen has been opened. Kamaichep Aka doesn't run or panic. Instead, it pads slowly toward the ceremonial hut, led gently by two handlers using ropes wrapped in cloth, not as restraints, but as guides. The bear walks with surprising calm, stopping only to sniff the base of a tree and sneeze dramatically. Once inside the hut, it sits as if it's always belonged there. The villagers gather in a wide ring around the hut, placing their offerings just outside its entrance. You do the same, guided by a soft-spoken elder who presses a pinnacone into your palm and nods toward the fire. You don't know why a pinnacone matters, but you offer it all the same. A hush settles. The wind slows. Even the snowflakes seem hesitant to land. A priest, Tonkori Kur, as someone whispers, steps forward. His robe is long, stitched with dark spirals that seem to move when he does. He carries a narrow staff carved with ridges and symbols, and his voice, when he begins to speak, is not loud, but it carries. Like water in a wooden bowl. He thanks the gods, thanks the bear, thanks the people. His chant flows in and out of Ainu and Japanese, words curling like smoke. At certain points, others join him in call and response. The rhythms rise and fall like breath. You feel them more than hear them, little vibrations in your spine, like the earth shifting under your feet. Then come the symbolic gifts, one by one. Children walk up with small, intentionally humble items. A wooden spoon, a polished stone, a tiny basket of dried moss. Each one is placed at the bear's doorway and blessed with a sprig of herbs. Each one tells a story, quiet ones, but real. A spoon might mean nourishment. A stone, memory. The moss? Maybe softness. Maybe the forest itself. Historians still argue whether these offerings were purely religious, or if they also had socio-political meanings, tokens of family pride, or even early forms of local diplomacy. But standing here, among snow-dusted boots and solemn faces, you suspect the meaning is more personal. Less about message, more about moment. Later in the afternoon, the villagers begin constructing the ikeap, a kind of sacred scaffold that will be used tomorrow to symbolically send the bear's spirit upward. 4 posts, bound with rope, supporting a flat platform layered with cedar branches and cloth. It stands near the ceremonial hut, plain yet precise, like a ladder that only spirits can climb. You help pass the materials, thick beams of wood, bundles of straw, the long braids of cloth that will drape from the sides. You notice that no one rushes. There's no shouting, no frantic corrections. If a knot takes 10 minutes to tie, so be it. The gods, apparently, are not fans of being hurried in the evening. There's a small gathering in the longhouse near the communal fire. The offerings are discussed, not evaluated, just remembered. A boy is teased gently for trying to give the bear a pickled plum. An old woman laughs so hard at the memory of it that she spills her tea. Someone begins to play the tongkuri, a 5-stringed instrument that hums like a wooden harp crossed with a dragonfly. The notes are sparse, melodic, occasionally haunting. You feel your pulse slow. Your breath settled. At one point, a chant is repeated 3 times. You don't catch the words, but you understand what they mean. Thank you. Go well. Come back if you wish. Back outside, the bear sleeps again, now in its ceremonial hut, surrounded by offerings. It curls in straw, half covered in blankets, one paw twitching like it's dreaming of rivers and pine needles and wide-open snowy spaces. You lie awake a little longer than usual that night, not restless, just full of images, sounds, soft pine, smoke that still clings to your sleeves. The gods, if they're listening, are very quiet tonight. But then again, you've learned they usually are. The morning of the day before the ceremony arrives with a particular kind of silence, not emptiness but expectation. The village has gone quieter still, like someone turned down the volume knob on the world. Even the snow seems to fall more carefully, as if it's trying not to interrupt anything important. You open your eyes slowly, the light filtering through the reed wall pale and wintry. The usual sounds of breakfast, the soft scrape of ladles, the comforting pop of millet bubbling, are present but dimmed. People are speaking in low voices. A few heads bow as they pass the ceremonial hut. This is a day for reverence. Outside, Kamaichep Aka sits upright in its little house, half nestled into a mound of straw, blinking slowly like a creature who understands more than it lets on. The bear doesn't growl or shift. It simply watches. Occasionally, it lifts its great head and turns toward the trees as though listening to something you cannot hear. Today, the bear fasts. You're told this gently by one of the elders, who offers you warm rice and fish but sets no bowl for the bear. The spirit needs clarity, she says, placing her hand over her chest. The stomach should rest. It's not just the bear. Many villagers eat only lightly today, plain rice, broth, maybe a handful of dried herbs. They move more slowly, speak less, and spend more time sitting together around small fires. No work on the structures, no rehearsing. Just presence. Even the dogs are subdued. You take a seat on a log near the ceremonial hut, where a group of elders has gathered. They speak in half sentences, the kind people use when silence is doing most of the talking. You catch fragments, references to past ceremonies, names of previous bears, the year the snow came late. No one says much about tomorrow. They don't need to. Historians still argue whether this pre-ceremony quiet was a formalized ritual or just a culturally ingrained behavior. But you don't need a footnote to feel its power. The absence of activity is, in itself, an offering, a form of attention, a turning inward as the hours unfold. Subtle rituals begin to take place. A young woman walks slowly around the bear's hut, sprinkling powdered ash along its perimeter. She circles it 3 times, her feet brushing the snow in short, shuffling steps. When she finishes, she places a small feather at the doorway and bows deeply. Later, a group of children is led to the base of a tree near the edge of the village. An elder kneels and carves a symbol into the bark spirals again, though this one ends in a dot. She places her hand on the tree, then gestures for the children to do the same. They obey with solemn wonder. No one explains what it means. It's not for you to know. And that's okay. You're handed a bundle of dried leaves and told to burn them quietly near the edge of the forest. The man who gives them to you doesn't offer instructions. He just looks you in the eye and nods once. You kneel in the snow, striking a small ember from flint into a basin lined with bark. The leaves catch slowly, curling and crisping into smoke that smells faintly of mint and soil and something older. You breathe it in. Your hands are warm now. Or maybe your chest is. You don't know what you're offering, but something leaves with the smoke dot as evening draws in. The village seems to dim itself. No one lights more torches than necessary. No songs are sung tonight. Only the low whistle of the wind moving through pine trees and the occasional crackle of firewood breaking apart. Inside one of the huts, you're invited to sit with a family you haven't met before. No names are exchanged, just tea. A bowl of hot broth with something you think might be burdock root, a thick mat to sit on, a hand that pats yours once, then lets go. In the silence, you hear a story being told so quietly it might be a dream. An elder speaks to a child nestled in her lap. She tells of a bear who climbed down from the mountains to bring fire to the first people. The bear carried it in its chest, which is why bears have warm hearts. When the fire was given, the bear disappeared into smoke, but promised to return. Every few seasons, it does. The child, half asleep, whispers, like Kame Chepaka? The elder just smiles. No one says bedtime. No one calls an end to the day. People just drift into mats under firs behind reed walls. You do the same. Your breath already slowing. Outside, the ceremonial hut is quiet. Inside, the bear sleeps still. No food, no sound. Just the warmth of straw and the hush of snow falling in the dark. You wake to drums. Not loud, not alarming. Just steady, deep. Like someone knocking gently on the underside of the earth. It's still dark, but only just. A soft gray light filters through the reed walls, giving everything the bluish tint of early morning snow. You rise slowly, your body already adjusting to the village's rhythm, and step outside into a world that feels different, not because anything has visibly changed, but because everything hums with quiet intent. Today is the day of the ceremony. The Iyomante. The sending of the bear spirit. The village is already moving, though no one is rushing. Torches are lit, casting orange halos on the snow. The ceremonial hut is surrounded now. Villagers standing in a wide ring, some holding bowls, others small carved sticks or bundles of herbs. All are silent. You step to the edge of the circle, heart thudding a little harder than usual. Even the wind feels like it's holding its breath. Kamichep sits calmly in its straw bed, blinking slowly as if entirely unsurprised by the gathered crowd. It rises without prompting and stretches massive paws flexing, shoulders rippling under thick fur. It is regal, solid, present. A priest steps forward, robes dusted with ash, face unreadable, voice soft. He chants in a slow rhythm, words like, "River stones rounded, ancient, shaped by time." He raises his hands and gestures toward the sky, then to the bear, then to the earth. Others echo his words, not as mimicry, but as harmony. You're handed a bundle of twigs, rosemary, cedar, and something else with a sharp, resinous scent, and instructed to wave it slowly as the chants rise. You do, letting the smoke curl around your fingers, letting the rhythm settle into your bones. Then come the arrows. They're ceremonial, blunted, painted, not meant to harm. One by one, elders lift bows and fire arrows gently over the bear's head. The arrows arc, flutter, and fall harmlessly into the snow. It's symbolic, an ancient gesture of farewell and reverence, meant to guide the bear's spirit back to the Kami realm. Kmuy-chep-aka does not flinch. It watches the arrows fall, then turns its head slightly toward the sky, as if following their invisible path. Historians still argue whether the use of arrows in Iyomante once held a deeper, possibly practical purpose. Some believe earlier versions of the ceremony may have included more finality, more ritualized hunting elements. But most agree the modern Iomonte, particularly by the late 19th century, had evolved into something gentler, less about sacrifice, more about sacred return. After the arrows, the food is brought forward not to eat, but to share. Bowls of millet, fish, berries, and sake are placed before the ceremonial hut. The priest blesses each one, flicking droplets of sake into the air. Some of the sake is poured onto the ground, some burned in a shallow dish to release its essence skyward. You catch the sweet, smoky scent and feel your shoulders soften involuntarily. Then someone steps forward with a drum and begins a low, hypnotic beat. You recognize the pattern similar to the one practiced days ago, but now slower, more deliberate. It's the rhythm of walking, of leaving, of a journey that begins not with a step, but with a pause. The bear is coaxed gently from its hut, not with rope or force, but with soft calls and gestures. It emerges into the snow, turning slowly, blinking into the morning light. It is massive now in full daylight, fur shimmering, paws pressing deep into the softened earth. And yet, it moves gently. The villagers begin a chant, soft and steady, syllables looping like water circling a drain. You find yourself humming along without knowing the words. It doesn't matter. The rhythm carries you. KMUY-CHEP-Aka is guided toward the Ikeop, the sacred scaffold built the day before. The platform is not for the bear itself, but for the offerings. Still, it pauses near it, sniffing the wood, brushing one paw against a hanging cloth bundle. Then it sits. Just sits, majestic and ordinary at once. The priest approaches with a small wooden ladle of sake and offers it. The bear sniffs, then laps once, twice. There's a quiet ripple of amusement through the crowd. But no one laughs loudly. It's not comedy. It's communion. Then the prayers begin in earnest. You watch as villagers come forward, one by one, each holding a small item, a bead, a leaf, a piece of carved wood. They place these onto the Ikeop or into a basket of smoke and ash beside it. They bow, they whisper. Some close their eyes for long minutes, lips moving silently. You're invited forward too. You take a breath, step into the snow, and place your pinacone, now faintly cracked and darkened, on the scaffold. Your fingers brush against cloth still warm from the morning sun. You don't speak, but you think something. A thank you, maybe. Or a goodbye. Or just a pause. The bear is still watching, still listening. Then the final chant begins. It's long, rising, looping, full of syllables that seem to swell the air. Voices rise in harmony, men and women, old and young, even the children. There's a deep feeling to it, like warmth filling a bowl. The sound doesn't rush. It flows. It carries. Priest raises his arms one final time, and the chant softens, then stops. A breeze moves through the clearing. The smoke curls upward. The bear stands. And then, slowly, it turns back toward its hut, toward the place it knows. It walks with no hesitation, no leash, no coaxing. Just grace. You watch it go. You don't want to blink. Later, when the ceremony has ended and people begin to drift back toward the fire for warmth and rest, someone leans toward you and says, "The bear knows the way home." You nod. Because somehow, now, you do too. Later in the day, as the sun hangs low behind the trees, casting that long golden light that makes even snow look like honey, the village gathers again. This time, it's not for prayer or dance. It's for farewell, but not the kind you'd expect. You return to the ceremonial space to find Aka lying comfortably, its fur dusted lightly with ash and its breath rising in slow, warm plumes. Around it, the villagers sit cross-legged or kneel in soft snow, forming a wide circle. Each face is calm, thoughtful. Some eyes are closed. The fire crackles at the edge of the clearing, throwing little sparks that rise like insects made of ember. You're handed a shallow bowl of something steaming and earthy. Not food, but a thick, fermented sake brewed specifically for this moment. It smells slightly sweet, slightly sour, and entirely foreign. You sip carefully. It tingles at the back of your throat, and you feel your chest warm. Kmuy-chep-aka is offered a small cup as well, presented on a wooden tray carved with spirals and painted in black ink. The bear drinks slowly, as if it knows this is part of the ritual, which, in a way, it does. You sit quietly, watching as the people begin to sing again, but softer now, more intimate. This isn't the communal chant from earlier. These are farewell songs. They vary from person to person, some sung in pairs, others solo, a few whispered. The melodies are slow, stretching like smoke, full of half-resolved notes and long, echoing vowels. You recognize one of the tunes from earlier in the week. A woman had been humming it near the fire while tending millet. Now you realize it's a lullaby, a song not just to soothe, but to release. One by one, villagers rise and approach Kmuy-chep-aka. They touch its side, bow their heads, whisper into the air just above its fur. Some place hands gently on its back. One old man presses his forehead to the bear's flank for a full minute, unmoving. You don't ask what they say. You don't need to. When it's your turn, you rise slowly. Your feet feel heavier than usual, not from cold, but from weight. The weight of being here. The honor of having seen what you've seen. You step forward. The bear lifts its head, looks at you with eyes the color of melted bark, and breathes slowly. You nod once, not expecting anything in return, but it blinks. Once. That's enough. You reach out, fingers hovering just above the thick fur, and murmur something, anything. Maybe a thank you. Maybe just the wind in word form. Then you step back. An elder calls out a final phrase, repeated gently by the group. The translation someone whispers to you is something like, "Go where the world welcomes you. Return when the path is ready." This, then, is the moment, the final farewell. The bear is led gently, still unbound, still calm, toward the forest edge. Not deep into the woods, but to a place where the trees thin out and a small stream cuts through. This is the sacred place. The space where the bear will be released. Not into the wild. This isn't that kind of release. No. The bear's spirit is being sent. It stands near the edge of the stream, snow piled high along its banks. One last bowl of rice is placed on the ground. One final song is sung, this one by a single voice, an elder woman whose voice trembles, not from weakness, but from memory. Kmuy-chep- Aka turns its head slowly, as if acknowledging the sound. Then it lies down in the snow. This is not death. It is not tragedy. It is transition. You've learned now that the Ainu believe the bear's physical form is a temporary vessel. Its spirit, its kamai, has already begun the journey home. What remains here is the shell, honored still, but no longer inhabited. Historians still argue over the final moments of the Iomonte. Some believe the bear was ceremonially sent off through death, its body becoming part of the ritual, its meat shared, its bones preserved. Others claim some bears were kept alive and allowed to live out their days peacefully. But the truth is, less about fact and more about flow. Different villages, different times, different ways. What matters is the spirit has returned. As night falls, a feast begins, not one of excess or noise, but of memory. You gather with the others around fires. Bowls of rice, grilled fish, boiled herbs, and sweet millet cakes are passed hand to hand. People speak again, louder now, even laughing in soft bursts. Not because they've forgotten, but because remembrance, too, is a celebration. One man tells a story of Kamaichep Aka stealing food from his porch last summer. A child recalls being licked on the face by accident when offering a fish. A woman shares that, in a dream, she saw the bear walking into the mountains, wearing a cloak. Of stars. You eat. You listen. You feel full in the way that has nothing to do with food. Later, before sleep, you take a walk to the edge of the village. The stars are out, hard and clear. You look toward the stream where the bear lay, and for just a moment, the wind shifts. You hear it, not a roar, not a growl, a breath, a memory, a whisper. The next morning, you're surprised to find the village humming again, gently, quietly, but with a kind of exhale to it, like the air has been let back in. People move about with a little more energy. Boots crunch more confidently in the snow. Children chase each other between huts, still careful not to disturb anything sacred, but no longer bound by the hush of yesterday's rites. Today is the feast of fur and memory. The ceremonial focus has passed, but the honoring continues. You soon realize that what's left behind Kamaichep Aka's body is not hidden or mourned, but welcomed, revered. Nothing is wasted. Everything is treated with sacred care. You're invited to sit with a group of women who are preparing strips of meat over low, fragrant smoke. It's not a scene of violence or harsh labor. It feels more like weaving, like they're stitching the last threads of a long spiritual garment. An elder pats the log beside her, and you sit. She shows you how to hold a sharpened bone tool, not for cutting, but for scoring. Each piece of meat is marked lightly, patterned like cloth. So the spirit doesn't lose track, she says, and smiles. It's explained to you in simple terms. The bear has given itself fully, and the people receive it fully, but not with greed, with thanks. The feast is not indulgence. It's ritual. Nourishment, yes, but also remembrance. You help carry a large tray to one of the communal huts, where fires are being stoked and trays of food arranged. The smell is rich and grounding, earthy meat, smoky cedar, hints of fermented millet and foraged herbs. This isn't a banquet. It's more like communion. One man hands you a bowl and says, "Eat slowly, think as you chew." And so you do. Meat is surprisingly tender. It tastes like cold pine forests and wood smoke and something warm in the chest. You chew carefully, feeling each bite as part of a longer story, one that began before you arrived and will go on after you leave. There are no toasts, no speeches, just shared space, shared breath. Occasionally, someone will stand and tell a story, not just about Kamaichep Aka, but about other bears, other ceremonies. Someone remembers a bear who used to splash in a wash tub. Another recalls a festival when the snow fell sideways for 3 days straight, and everyone was convinced the gods were trying to send a message about someone's poor singing voice. You hear laughter, true, soft, belly-deep laughter. Historians still debate whether these communal meals served political or leadership functions within Ainu society. Some argue that the feast helped establish status. Those who contributed more, hosted more, were seen as more connected to the spirits. But others point out that in ceremonies like this, hierarchy dissolves. The food is shared equally. The roles rotate. Reverence doesn't need a ranking system. Children are allowed to serve the elders. A young boy carefully carries a carved ladle of stew to an older woman, who nods in thanks but doesn't fawn. She just eats. The gesture is enough. Outside, the sky has cleared and light glints off every surface. You step into the brightness, your breath forming soft clouds, and find a small group gathered near the ceremonial hut. They're preparing Kamaichep Aka's fur. You hesitate, uncertain whether to join, but someone waves you closer. The fur is laid out flat, brushed clean, every edge carefully smoothed. It's not being kept as a trophy. It will be dried, preserved, and hung inside the largest longhouse, not as decoration but as memory. A garment for the gods. A whisper of what once lived here. One woman begins to sing as she works, not a chant. This time, but something lighter. A melody with a bounce, a bit of mischief. You recognize the tune from earlier in the week one of the children was humming it. Now you realize it's a song for the fur. A way of reminding it that it is still. Loved, still sacred, even in its stillness. Later, you find yourself sitting with a few others beside a small fire near the stream. Someone has brewed a tea from pine needles and fermented mushrooms. It tastes like the forest trying to make amends for winter. You ask a question quietly. What happens now? A man stirs his tea and shrugs. We clean. We thank. We wait for dreams. It's not poetic. It's just the truth. There is no after party. No closing ceremony. The feast winds down naturally, the food disappearing, the bowls stacked, the stories trailing off into the cold evening air. People begin to slip away again. Some back to their huts. Some off into the woods to check traps, gather wood, do what people always do after a sacred event. Return to life. But it's not the same life. Not exactly. The air hums with something left behind. A trace. A shape in the snow that didn't melt. You wander to the edge of the village and look up into the tree line. Somewhere beyond those pines, the spirit of Kamaichep is climbing. You feel it not as a belief, but as a quiet certainty in your ribs. The stars begin to emerge one by one, as if drawn by the smoke still curling from a dozen small fires. Behind you, someone sings again, this time just a fragment. One note. A half thought. You close your eyes. You feel full. You feel quiet. You feel part of something ancient. The next day begins with gray light and silence, not the reverent stillness of ceremony, but the kind of silence that follows something important. Like the air has been holding its breath and is only now remembering to exhale. You step outside. Boots crunching lightly through new snow. It's softer now, beginning to melt in patches where the sun reaches low rooftops and fire-warmed paths. The village is calm. Not idle, just calm. No chanting, no drumming, no firelit processions. Just people, stretching, sweeping, washing wooden bowls in the stream. Life with its sleeves rolled up again. Today, it seems, is for the soul's journey. You follow a small group heading out toward the edge of the village, past the ceremonial hut and the stream where Kamaichep was last seen. There's a path. Here, freshly cleared. It winds into a shallow valley framed by tall trees that still hold onto snow like secrets. The air smells different here. Less of smoke, more of earth. As you walk, the voices around you fade. Not into silence, but into quiet conversation. Murmured memories. A few chuckles. One woman talks about dreaming of a bear that was wearing a necklace made of clouds. A man swears he saw steam rise from the bear's body even after the fire had gone out, like its breath lingered long past its form. You come to a small rise in the land, where the path opens into a natural clearing ringed with stones and small wooden posts. At the center, a pile of ash still faintly warm is surrounded by bundles of wood, feathers, and bits of cloth tied with bark fiber string. This is the Okikurmui, the sacred site where the bear's soul is believed to begin its return to the divine realm. One of the elders begins a slow chant, barely louder than the wind. Others join in, some adding harmonies, others just swaying slightly, eyes half closed. No one instructs you to do anything, but your body leans forward anyway. Your breath falls into the same rhythm. You don't understand the words, but you know what they mean. It's a goodbye, but also see you again. One by one, villagers begin placing tokens into the ashes. tiny sticks wrapped in cloth, a feather brushed with ash, a carved button, a clump of pine resin wrapped in moss. These are the spirit gifts offerings meant not to please, but to accompany. Items the bear's spirit will carry back to the mountain gods as reminders of this place. These people, you're offered one too, a small wooden charm shaped like a teardrop with 3 etched lines down the center. You don't know what it signifies, and no one explains. That's part of the gift, it isn't yours to define. You place it in the ash carefully, feeling its warmth against your fingertips. Then you look up. The sky is low with clouds, but not heavy. A soft breeze brushes past your ears and carries with it a faint scent fir and smoke and pine. It's fleeting, gone before you can name it, but it's enough. You're told the bear's spirit travels upward in these moments, not vertically, necessarily, but directionally. Back to the Kami world, the realm of gods and spirits. And while the ceremony may be complete, the journey is not. It continues through dreams, stories, echoes. Historians still puzzle over whether these beliefs were metaphor made literal, or something else entirely. They search for concrete answers in ashes and carvings and fading oral records. But here now, you begin to understand some truths aren't for proving. They're for practicing. You linger as the last of the offerings are placed, the ashes, darkened with melted snow. Someone presses their palms together and touches the ground. You do the same dot as the group begins to walk back, the wind shifts again. Not a gust, just a nudge. You hear something overhead, a creak, maybe a bird, maybe a side dot, no one comments. But everyone notices, back in the village, the energy has lightened. Children play with sticks, chasing each other through powdery drifts. A woman shakes out blankets. Near a fire pit, someone sharpening a tool, its rhythmic scrape oddly comforting dot inside one of the huts. You're invited to sit beside a low fire where a pot of something thick and savory simmers. It's stew, but it tastes more like memory. You eat slowly, savoring the blend of mountain herbs, smoked meat, and root vegetables you can't quite identify. You imagine the bear, somewhere beyond the reach of the trees, nosing through snow, wading across a river of stars dot in the corner of the hut. An elder tells a story about a spirit who forgets it's a god and returns to earth as a fox. It wanders through a village, stealing shoes and making the rice always just slightly overcooked. Eventually, someone sings the right song, and the fox remembers who it is, bows politely, and vanishes in a puff of smoke that smells like burnt seaweed. Children listening burst into laughter. One of them insists the fox still lives in the woods behind the ceremonial hut. No one disagrees. That night, you lie down early, stomach full, eyes heavy, mind quiet. You dream of snow falling upward, of paw prints glowing faintly, of fur-lined clouds and songs with no words. The bear doesn't speak in the dream, it just breathes. And you breathe with it. You wake slowly, the dream still lingering soft and half-formed, like a song hummed through a wall. You try to hold on to it, but it slips between your fingers like mist. Outside, the snow has stopped. The world is pale and still, as if it's waiting for something. Or maybe it just remembers everything that's happened and is choosing silence out of respect. You step into the light, now brighter than any morning before. The sky is a sheet of pale blue, and the smoke from the village chimneys rises straight and steady. A good sign, someone tells you. It means the air is calm, that the spirits are watching quietly. Today is a day of tokens and talismans. Small objects, carved and bound, will be placed around the village and in the ashes of the ceremonial. Sight reminders for the spirit, yes, but also for the people. A way of saying, we were here. We remember. You are welcome to return. You're invited into a small hut, barely tall enough to stand in, where a group of villagers young and old sit around a low table scattered with slivers of wood, bits, of cord, feathers, stones, and animal hair. It looks like someone emptied the pockets of the forest onto the floor. These are the spirit gifts. Inkarus is sometimes called watching things. Everyone works silently, except for the occasional quiet joke or chuckle. One man holds up a piece of carved bone shaped like a fish and makes it swim through the air. A girl giggles, then returns to carefully wrapping bark string around a tiny piece of crystal. You're handed a strip of wood and a small blade. Your first attempt at carving looks more like a sad spoon than anything spiritual, but no one comments. One of the elders gently takes it from you, smiles, and flips it over. "It's a mountain now," she says, and hands it back. Historians still argue whether these tokens had fixed symbolic meanings, whether a bear claw always meant strength, or a carved spiral always represented the wind. The truth seems more fluid. These objects aren't coded messages. They're emotional ones. Memories frozen in shape. Once the talismans are complete, they're bundled into soft cloth pouches, some tied to small sticks, others to cords meant to be hung from beams or doorways. A few are slipped quietly into the ashes of the farewell. Fire, now cold and gray. You follow a woman down to the stream, where she kneels and floats a tiny bark boat carrying 2 wooden beads and a sprig of dried herb. She whispers something and lets it drift. You watch it bob gently down the current until it disappears around a bend. That, too, is part of the ritual. Not everything is meant to be kept. Back in the village, one of the boys runs by waving a small branch, pretending it's a magical sword. He shouts something in Ainu that probably translates to protect the bear, or fight the spirit snakes, or maybe just look at me. You laugh, and so does everyone around. The mood is lighter. Now, sacred, still, but with joy allowed to return. The bear has gone. But the bear is still here. At the ceremonial hut, a new bundle of herbs is placed near the entrance. It's not for Kamichep Aka anymore. It's for whatever comes next. For the memory of the god that once stayed in these walls. You notice someone hanging one of the talismans above the entrance to their home. It's shaped like a fish and tied with red string. It spins slightly in the wind. "So we remember," the man says when he catches your eye, "and so we don't lose the song." You think about that. Remembering and not losing the song. They're not the same thing. One is looking back. The other is continuing to listen. In the late afternoon, there's a gathering inside the longhouse. Everyone brings something: a carving, a pouch, a story. The air smells like cedar and melted snow. Warm bodies close together. The bear's fur has been cleaned and dried, now stretched across a ceremonial frame and placed near the central fire. Not as a trophy, as an echo. People share stories, quiet ones. Someone talks about the first time they fed the bear a piece of yam and it sneezed so hard it scared itself. Another remembers hearing the bear breathe in the night just one hut over. Like a giant dreaming in sync with the village. A woman pulls out a piece of cloth, stained and singed at the edges. She unfolds it to reveal a painting, just shapes and spirals, but unmistakably a bear form curled in the center. She doesn't explain it. She doesn't have to. Later, you help hang the final talismans above doorways beside fire pits, even in trees. One is placed near the bear's sleeping area, now empty but still hallowed. You tie a strand of fiber around a branch, watching it twist in the breeze. You don't know what yours means, but you know what it feels like. Night settles slowly. Lamps are lit, fires fed. The air inside the huts glows golden, flickering shadows across every woven mat and weathered beam. As you lie down, your own talisman tucked inside your coat, you wonder whether the bear's spirit will visit again, whether it already has, whether that breath of wind earlier was something more than wind. You close your eyes to the sound of pine trees shifting outside, to the warmth of fire humming in your bones, to the quiet chorus of memory tied in twine and bark. By now, the rhythm of village life has resumed its natural tempo, slow, deliberate, weather-dependent, but with an undercurrent of quiet reflection that trails through every gesture like smoke from a fading fire. Tonight, the storytelling begins. Not just stories about the bear, though Kamaichep Aka will appear again and again, of course, but older stories too. Myth, memory, and dream swirl together like snow caught in a gust. Some are told as truth. Some are told with a smile that dares you to believe them anyway. You sit cross-legged near the hearth in the largest longhouse, legs gently asleep under a thick quilt, your breath already starting to match the slow rise and fall of those around you. Someone throws a handful of pine needles onto the fire and they hiss softly, releasing a scent so sharp and clean it feels like you just bit into winter itself. An elder woman clears her throat. Just once and the room shifts. Talking ceases. No call for attention is needed. Everyone turns to listen. She begins in Ainu, her voice like wood polished smooth with use. Even without knowing the language, you understand. This is not a story. It is a place. And she's leading you inside it. She tells of a time when the mountains were new and the rivers had not yet chosen which way to flow. The gods were still animals, and the animals were still gods. Among them, the bear was strongest, but not because it fought, because it remembered. The bear, she says, was the only creature who could carry a song from one world to another. It had ears not just on its head, but in its heart. It heard the words the sky whispered to the river. And it never forgot. One day, the bear was asked by the mountain to deliver a message to the sea. The bear agreed, but it took so long, so very long that when it returned, it had grown a second shadow. And that shadow walked behind the bear from that day on, quiet as breath, heavy as history. No one knows what the message was. Some say it was love. Some say it was warning. Some say it was the names of every person not yet born. The fire cracks. Sparks rise. A boy nearby asks in a whisper, "Was Kamaichep Aka one of those bears?" The elder pauses just long enough to make everyone lean forward. "Maybe," she says. "Maybe it was the one with two shadows." A soft ripple of laughter moves through the room, not mocking, but comfortable. The kind of laughter that says, "We've heard this before, and we'll hear it again." More stories follow. A man speaks of a bear who became a tree. Its paws reached down into the soil, and its breath became the wind that shakes the branches when no storm is near. Another tells of the fox who tried to marry a salmon but could never stop bragging, and so was cursed to wander alone, smelling. Always of onions. Someone mentions a woman who once gave birth to a cub instead of a baby and raised it anyway, feeding it rice and singing to it until it learned to speak. It moved away eventually, but still sends letters in the form of scratched tree bark and paw prints left in the snow. You begin to lose track of time, not because you're distracted, but because time doesn't matter here. These aren't just stories. They're memory scaffolds, spirit echoes. You can't separate the bear from the myth from the person telling it. It all blurs together, like firelight through steam. Historians still argue whether Ainu oral tradition was mostly myth or coded history, if these stories preserve real events, or if they were simply spiritual tools. But no one in the room seems concerned with that question. Here, story is both. Story is everything. As the night deepens, the flames settle lower, and the storytellers grow fewer. Eventually, the words give way to humming slow, tuneless at first, then growing into a murmur of lullabies and half-remembered chants. Someone wraps a fur around your shoulders. You didn't notice you were shivering. The boy who asked about. The bear's shadow has curled into his grandmother's lap, asleep. The man who told the fox story is nodding off beside the fire, his hand still holding the carved stick he used for emphasis. You let your head lean back against the wall. Eyes open just enough to watch the play of firelight on the ceiling beams. One beam is marked with a tiny carved bear, a simple outline but unmistakable. You wonder how long it's been there. Decades? Centuries? A few stories ago? You close your eyes, and there it is again. The image of the bear, not frightening, not distant, close, warm, present. Its fur shimmering like moonlight on bark. Its breath steady. Its eyes full of stars. Not because it's a god, but because it remembers how to carry the sky in its chest. You sleep before the story ends. But the story doesn't mind. It will wait. Morning arrives soft and late, as though even the sun decided to sleep in. No one wakes you. There's no rush now, no schedule. Only the sound of a broom whisking snow from a threshold and the smell of tea steeping in wooden cups. You step outside. Into a world hushed not by ceremony anymore, but by snowfall. Fresh snow coats everything light, even and gently persistent. It doesn't swirl. It doesn't sting. It just falls. Straight down like a silent blessing. Like the sky is dusting. Powdered sugar on a memory. Today is not for rituals. Today is for recovery. For humming songs without thinking. For tidying up the spaces where spirits passed through. For bundling children in furs and letting them run carefully under snow-heavy eaves. You pass a cluster of villagers sweeping the path around the ceremonial hut. They work slowly, rhythmically. One hums a tune you recognize, the chant from the offering day, now softened into something more like a lullaby. They don't speak as they work. Not out of sadness, but in the way you don't speak while washing. A dish that belonged to someone you loved. Down the path, you find the children. Not marching or rehearsing this time. Just playing. Bundled up in layers of cloth and bark fiber, scarves covering all but their eyes. They're building small figures in the snow, some shaped like people, others like animals, and one unmistakably shaped like a bear. This last one is the most elaborate. They've used moss for the nose, black pebbles for eyes, and tied bits of red string around the ankles like ceremonial talismans. You watch them step carefully around it, whispering. Then one of them throws snow into the air and calls, "Fly Kamai." They burst into laughter and fall backwards into the snow. You sit down beside them, boots crunching, and help roll a smaller snowball into shape. One of the girls leans over and carefully presses a small, spiral charm into its side. "For the heart," she says, so it remembers where it came from. In the background, the longhouse is open. Smoke curls from the center. A few elders sit outside under the awning, carving and sipping tea. One is shaping something from a flat piece of wood, a bear again, but this one with wings. It's not realistic. It doesn't need to be. Inside, the fur of Kamaichep Hawkeye hangs beside the hearth now. Not stretched or framed, just draped soft, revered. It doesn't draw attention, but you feel its warmth from across the room. One elder is teaching a chant to a younger boy. Not singing it, just speaking it slowly, letting the rhythm unfold like a path in the woods. The boy repeats each phrase with focus, occasionally stumbling, always met with patience. Again, the elder says, let the syllables fall like snow. Historians still argue whether these chants were ever written down in early Ainu tradition or if they survived purely through memory and repetition. Most agree they live in the body more than on any page. Words passed from chest to chest, like breath. Outside again, the snow continues, but never hard. Just steady. Trees are outlined in white now. Roofs wear soft caps. You see someone brushing the snow from the carved bear statue at the ceremonial site, not forcefully, just enough to keep the eyes clear. In the afternoon, the children begin. collecting smooth stones, one from each family, and placing them in a circle near the stream. Not instructed, not organized. Just happening. When you ask, they say the stones are for the bear's path, so it knows where the village ends and where the stars begin. You nod, because it makes perfect sense. As evening nears, you help carry wood to one of the central huts. Inside, preparations for a final meal are underway, not ceremonial, just hearty. A pot of root stew, some roasted fish, a plate of pressed millet cakes cut into rough stars. Someone has added a carved bear-shaped cake to the table. It leans slightly to one side. Everyone laughs when it topples, then eats it anyway. No speeches are made tonight. No one recites anything. But as bowls are passed, you notice people quietly naming what they're grateful for. A warm hut, dry boots, a dream they had last night about a bear curled up on a bed of moss. Someone says thank you to the fire. The thank you is not answered, but you feel like the fire hears it. Later, as you sit on the porch under a thick blanket, watching the snow soften the world into a dream, one of the elders joins you. He says nothing for a long time. Then, some people think the ceremony is about the bear. You wait. But the bear already knew what it was, he continues. The ceremony is so we don't forget. You ask what it is we're not supposed to forget. He chuckles. That we're small, he says, but not alone. You nod out somewhere, just beyond the edge of the trees. You think you hear a rustle. Maybe a fox, maybe wind, maybe nothing at all. But you whisper goodbye, just in case. And the snow keeps falling, gentle as memory. The final morning is the quietest yet, not somber. Just settled out, the kind of stillness that comes after something is fully complete, not a pause between moments, but a moment entirely unto itself. You wake slowly, no hurry now, the rhythm of the village having worked its way into your breath and bones. Outside, the snow has stopped. The air is crisp and dry, the sky clear. You can see the shape of the mountains now, sharp against the pale morning. The trees hold their frost like lacework, and every branch looks touched by moonlight, even in full sun. You step into your boots one last time and walk toward the ceremonial hut. It stands empty now, but not abandoned. Its doorway is adorned with fresh branches. The inside has been swept. A single Ainu stick remains, planted in the center like a bookmark in a sacred text. You press your palm to the wooden beam beside the door. It's warm from sunlight. Someone has left a bundle of herbs tied with red string at the threshold. A final gesture. Maybe a hello. Maybe a thank you. You follow the stream for a while, past the bend where Kamichep Aka once stood. The snow here is untouched. The water gurgles under a thin sheet of ice, dark and quick beneath the still surface. There are tracks nearby, fox, maybe deer, maybe something else. The village is beginning its daily work again. Smoke rises from chimneys. Baskets are being repaired. Sleds prepared. Firewood stacked. The usual rhythms. But there's a softness to it all now, like everyone is moving through the world with just a little more care. You're invited one last time into the longhouse, where a simple breakfast is being shared. Warm broth, dried yam, and a tea made from roasted bark and wild mint. It tastes like the forest saying good morning. There are no farewells, no formal partings. People simply place a hand on your shoulder, nod, or offer a smile. You're given a small pouch woven from bark thread, containing a smooth black stone and a single red feather. For the path, someone says. No explanation needed. You carry it with you as you walk through the village one last time. Past the bears' sleeping place. Past the snow sculpture the children built. Past the carved post near the stream, where someone has now etched a new spiral. The snow crunches underfoot. You pause at the edge of the village, looking back one final time. Smoke rises, children laugh. A dog trots by carrying something it probably wasn't supposed to find. The bear's presence lingers not as a ghost, but as a warmth, a knowing. You close your eyes and feel it, the breath of the fire, the rhythm of the chants, the steady weight of being part of something older than language. Then you turn toward the trail. Your feet begin to move, and the bear walks beside you, not in shadow, not in form, but in shape, in feeling. You do not look back again. You don't need to. Now, as we leave this place behind, let your body soften. The path you walked was quiet and long, shaped by ceremony, silence, and slow steps through snow. You don't need to carry every detail with you. Just a feeling, a breath, a rhythm, a small bundle of warmth that settles in the chest. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let your fingers curl loosely by your side. Picture the village again, tucked into the forest like a thought you almost forgot. Picture the bear, sleeping once more, not gone, just returned. The fire in the longhouse has dimmed now, but still glows. Still hums. Snow falls again, barely there. So light you might mistake it for memory. The sky darkens gently above. The wind softens. The world waits. And so do you. Whatever the day has left behind, you've done enough. You've seen enough. You've remembered something you didn't know. You'd forgotten. Let the stars fade in slowly behind your closed eyes. Let the cold stay on the outside and the warmth settle inside, where it can glow gently through the night. There's nothing else you need to do. You are still. You are safe. You are exactly where you should be, and the bear walks with you even now.